So the ship is called the Defender, and it literally is that. You know, it's not an aggressive ship. I mean, it's a very unique looking ship.
We needed to link up with the writing team in LA, so David and Will, to find out what the Banu are about, if there are any specific things that we needed to take in mind when we made the ship.
We knew from the beginning that if they had like a fighting ship, it would probably be an escort ship primarily, because what would they want to do with it? They would want to protect their valuable trading ship.
What we generally do there is we take the requirements from Ben and Chris, and we look at ships similar to that role to see kind of where it fits in the universe.
And I think initially there was about 18 initial ideas of just different configurations, often with like the two pods. That's been a major feature, and also taking into account, on the Merchantman, we've got there's ramps feature heavily, and trying to sort of just tie that in as well. So on this one, I think Chris picked 3 that he liked, and then we kind of just riffed on those. A little more in 2D, a little more in 3D, just super blocky. It's almost what looks good first, and then we can sort of come back from that and go, okay, well, how do we actually make this work?
As we've learned more about not only our game systems, but as the race itself, that's also been slowly being brought up to date and adjusting.
Yeah,
and
we just had a conversation with the UK guys about like room assignment, what room does what, and stuff like that, and it's really opening up some really interesting, like some really fascinating, unique things about how a Banu crew works, and then compared and contrasted with a human crew. It's very, very different and very weird.
The Banu, quite interestingly, have it's kind of like a social system where very specifically trained in a field. Unlike the UAE ships where it's just one man in a fighter, they have possibly a fighter and a gunner, and instead of the gunner being in a turret, they're actually manning the main ship weapons alongside the pilot. So they're trained to work in tandem rather than like a generalist role, which is why there's a dual cockpit system going on with it.
Right off the bat, we did like a typical sort of human configuration. Things in racks, and it was instantly obvious that wasn't going to work. It was out of place. The whole rigidity and the structure was complete opposite to what we're sort of trying to get for the interior. And so there was a lot of drawing, a lot of line work, just to sort of, again, it was all about flow lines, curving from the roof down to the floor. So after a little more chat with Nate and Jay Brushwood, we decided to really go for like a sort of it's like a horizontal shutter system basically. So this whole thing will just like open up and just go and just reveal all the components, and they will be in a sort of structure, but the facade is still very sort of Art Nouveau, sweeping, organic, and it'll make quite a nice experience. I think it should be there. You'll push the button, you'll have this reveal, and then you can change out your components, or change your fuses, or whatever it is that you want to do.
So the Defender, as an example, has a bigger shield than most of the fighters we've got in the game, especially of the same size. However, as a counterpoint, it's got a very weak hull. So the second you get through that shield, you're in trouble.
The Defender has a Xi'an engine on it, and at a certain point, they were like, "Oh, this engine's much better suited for this ship than the previous engine that we had on there." So they got the engine design, they retro-engineered it, they figured it out, they started manufacturing it, and now it's a Xi'an engine incorporated into their tech.
It kind of comes in 2 configurations. There's like a flight configuration and a landed configuration. I really like the landed configuration. It just creates a really nice silhouette, and you'll know straight away that's the Defender when you see it on a landing pad. There's just no way you'll mistake it.
One of the things that we've been talking about internally was the idea that they, as a culture, they don't have fine art, but the idea being that kind of creative energy goes into the manufacturing of the thing. So that's why they, like, all their stuff has really beautiful kind of quality to it.
And also the way they build their ships, you can see the pride in how it represents their own personal worth in the artistry behind it, the intricacy. Like, it's just beautiful to look at, and that's because of how much it represents who they are.
both me and Nate and design have been heavily involved working with a concept artist for a palette that sort of invokes a richness, basically. So muted golds, pale golds. There's hints to sort of gemstones integrated in a very functional way, so they're sort of used as light accents.
While flying's quite involved, so is the shooting, especially when you've got the gimbaled weapons on the front. You're not waiting for the pilot to line up a shot directly. You'll be able to have a little bit of movement there yourself. So while the pilot's trying to track the target, the gunner will be able to shoot within a nice range of that. The dual seats kind of came about because we also wanted the seats to eject, and we really didn't want to force the pilot to eject the gunner as well. But you're also not restricted to this pilot-gunner thing either, because this ship is a Banu ship produced for humans. You will be able to get in there, fly it on your own, be the pilot and the gunner, but if you want a friend to pop in there with you, they can do some engineering work, they can jump on the weapons if they want to, so you're a bit more free.
And this has been quite exciting. I think the whole team is pretty excited to work on it. It sounds a bit of a crazy mix, but when people see the images, it all comes together, and it's very obviously not human, and hopefully, obviously Banu. But I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to seeing it sort of come through the production process and then turn up on people's screens.